please take your seat?
Yeah, I heard when you said something.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for coming to the meeting of the Lake Lure Marine Commission. If you would, please stand for the invocation and then the pledge. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come here and conduct the town's business. We pray for wisdom and insight to make decisions that are wise and in the best interest of the town. Pray in Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there a motion to approve our agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Bob, there's a second?
Second.
Second by Stephen, all in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. The only business we have on the agenda tonight is discussion of when we lower the lake, how much we lower it. There are good reasons to lower it, there are good reasons not to lower it. And we started talking about this at our last meeting, and we decided one thing we wanted to do was get all the community input that we could. None of us have made up our minds whether we think where we think we should end up. We heard a number of reasons last time on both sides. I think that we were kind of maybe leaning toward lowering it when there was a reason to lower it, but we also agreed that we had not received enough community input, and that's what this meeting tonight is about. We've received a few emails. We won't read those. It would take too much time, but any of you who haven't signed up to speak or don't want to speak, please feel free to send us an email and let us know if you think there's something we've missed, something we need to consider that we are not considered, or if you just want us to let us know what your position is on it. So I noticed we have three people signed up to speak. First one is Nancy McNary. If you'll come to the podium and we've got 5 minutes, and tell us whether you think we ought to leave the lake up, let it down, or what.
Hi, I'm Nancy McNary. I've lived year-round on Sunset Cove now for 28 years. I've been year-round. I've owned it for 35 years. In the early years, the lake went down every year. And then those of us who were living here noticed that if a storm hit and the level of the lake from the storm hit was at the base of your seawall, you could end up overnight having a foot erosion, that it just wreaked havoc to the base of the seawalls. So it became real critical that we address it. Well, the Lake Committee then came up with the policy under Bob Washburn that it was every 3 years. And that seemed to have worked. It's a balance. You know, you still fear every time your lake's going up or down, you fear for your seawall that you're going to get caught. There was one time when Jack Powell, who was mayor of Lake Lure at the time, he got hit and he lost 1.5 feet. And so the neighbors all had to get together and help him carry down big sacks of sacrete so he could at least pin up under his existing seawall until it could be changed or fixed later. 2 years ago, when the lake was down, it'll be 2 years this winter, Mayor Kevin Cooley asked me if I saw lake being done across the cove on Paradise Point. They had asked for an extension, the lake was due to come back up, but they were doing some seawall work. Well, I looked over there, and there was no work. And each day I would email Kevin and say, gee, I don't see any work going on. And it was a slow process. And so I think that if someone does ask for an extension, that it needs to be a policy that should an extension be granted, the owner must email daily the progress of the work being done. Because the winters on this lake, as all of y'all know, can be very dreary. And every effort should be made to keep the lake up. I mean, you know, there's a happy medium. But I think just to get an extension and then not to get busy and get the work done is not being fair to everybody else. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Wally Gilbert.
Wally Gilbert, Yacht Island. In the winter, when the wind starts whistling down that gorge at 60 miles an hour, everything facing west is at risk because of the 3 to 4 foot waves. I'm against letting the lake down. The last drawdown that we had, which I think there was a replacement at the dam, but the lake must have been down 8 to 10 feet. My boathouse is on the island, right on the point of the island. So all the wind and waves that are generated come right along. The last time, it took me 2 months to stabilize my boathouse. And I had called Dean a few times. I called the city manager several times, asking him when the sucker was going to go back up. I lost 3 to 4 feet of sand underneath my boathouse. That sand probably had been building up 20 years. I could not believe it. I have, if you had a computer, I have pictures, 30, 40 pictures of underneath my boathouse. I had to shore up 6 by 6 footers that were holding up boats. I had to put extensions on them of 3 feet. That's how much sand was removed. So I say, and also walking around the island on the windward side, I noticed that most of the boathouses that are there on the island, their vertical posts were also not touching anything. There was just concrete around the base of them, but not touching the ground. So there's pros and cons. The cons of my situation is some of my seawall is old block. So every 3 years that I've been here, I've been able to use concrete and patch my own concrete block. But the rest of my seawall is poured concrete. So I'm sure that people that don't see the wind suffer no damage, because I've walked around and looked. But those that see this catastrophic wind generate these waves, these are the ones that suffer with the lake down. So that's my position. So it would be fine with me if it never went down again, but I know it has to sometime.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wally. Mike Fitzgerald?
Good afternoon. My name's Mike Fitzgerald. I'm on the board of directors of Rumbling Bald Resort, and I'm really here representing Jeff Geisler, who is actually doing a presentation to our members right now about a 5-year plan. So he asked me to come and say a few words on. So these are on behalf of the resort. So we are not in favor of the current schedule either. As a matter of fact, we find it very disruptive of our operations, and I'll give you a few examples. As you know, we have a large floating dock system, and as the docks go down, virtually all our members are required to remove their boats, whether they're there or not. And the few that do leave them, they sit in the mud the whole year. I've actually seen outboard motors and propellers under mud, so it's very disruptive for the few people that can't get their boats out on time. Next, we have several guests that come, even in the shoulder seasons or in the winter, that really don't get what they paid for. In other words, they looked at your website, they looked at our website, they looked at the beautiful views of the lake, and whether they're in their condo looking at the lake or strolling on the beach, they're obviously not swimming, or they're sitting in our restaurant. They're just not getting what they expected to buy when they came to Lake Lure. Third, as you know, we host a lot of the rowing teams. And it's amazing, you know, we go to great lengths to make it as good as we can, but we've got kids walking through mud to try to find water out there, and I think that's one of the points that you made on your sheet too. So it's highly disruptive to the rowing business, which is growing, as you know, and it's a bigger business all the time. And last but not least, it's just the untold number of visitors that see our greatest asset in a really bad state. As much as we can shorten that up and work together to keep those views and the beauty of the lake going, that would be a positive thing to us. So obviously, we know too, it's got to come down occasionally for reasons, but at least is better. The last part is we do also plan to do hydraulic dredging this year. We've just finished our pedestrian bridge, and we too have a lot of dredging to do. We had to move a dock and so forth, and that would become a problem for us also.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Is anyone else who would like to speak? Come on, Dave. I saw y'all get to you too. Just, Dave, just 1 second before you start. Michelle, do we have copies of this we give to everybody?
There's one, but I can make copies. There was
Okay.
one.
Well, I know you're doing something.
Yeah.
Shannon, could you?
Be glad to. Front and back.
What we have here is, and I want to make enough for everybody, there's a list that Dean put together of the pros and cons, some of the things that we were told at last month's meeting. And I think it would be good for everybody to have that, and maybe you can make notes on it, or at least just see why this isn't an easy decision. Not an easy thing to figure out, but we're going to work on it. Okay, David, I'm
Sorry, I
sorry.
didn't see the
Yeah,
sign-up
well,
list.
we'll have one for you in a minute.
I'm David Klett. My wife Penny and I live at 410 Cutaway Road on the main channel. Our boathouse was built in the early 60s by Earl Wilson. That'll tell you a couple things. It wasn't built exceptionally well in the first place, and it's now over 50 years old. So there's a lot of maintenance to be done. The 3-year lowering schedule worked quite well for us in that 3 years, 1 year's worth of repairs would typically last 3 years, and then it was time to do some more. The pilings are only 4x4s, and they rest on the bottom. They're not sunk in. The time they lowered the lake 12 feet a couple years ago for generator repairs was the first time that the outermost pilings on the boathouse had been exposed, and they definitely needed some attention. So I think that, well, when the lake's low, that's the only time that I can get under there to do those repairs. 3 years works pretty well for us. We might be able to get by with on a 4-year schedule. I think more than that would present some problems. I can't imagine the increased expense that we're gonna face if we have to hire that work done instead of being able to do it ourselves, and especially if the lake is not lowered. And we have to pay somebody to do that kind of work underwater. It's gonna be terribly expensive, it's gonna be a big burden. So in short, I hope that the town doesn't stop lowering the lake on some kind of regular basis, so that it'll allow us to, and others, to do repair work on docks, boathouses, and seawalls.
Okay. Thank you, David. Got a gentleman.
I didn't see the list, so I apologize. My name's Steve Norrie. I live in Lake Lure Village Resort so this is a Lake Lure Village Resort issue. As far as I'm concerned, we've got floating docks. When you lower the lake, we have major damage on. I think the gentleman there had some concerns about Rumbling Bald. They've got the same sort of issue. It's expensive. The lake is on the bottom of the lake's not flat, right? The docks do this. The last time it went down, it was supposed to come down between 5 and 8 feet. It ended down at 12 feet, and we ended up with a $13,000 bill to fix our docks, which I talked to the town manager, saying, give me some money, and he laughed, but we had to dredge ourselves, pay for the dredging ourselves, and we had to pay for the dock repair ourselves. We're not for dropping the lake at all.
Okay.
You can fix on boathouses and seawalls. It costs more money, but you can do it full pond.
But I do have one question for you. You mentioned Lake Lure Village Resort. Are you on the board? Are you speaking for the resort, or are you
Yes,
speaking just for?
I'm on the board.
Okay, all right.
And I'm speaking for myself and.
And okay. All right, good. Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
I'm Al Joyner at 428 Cutaway Road. My story's going to be, or perspective's going to be similar to David's. I'm 2 houses down from him, and it sounds like the same person may have built their boathouses. I don't know. This will be a difficult situation because we have such a variety of landscape around the lake, north, south, east, and west. Thanks for having the opportunity to speak. What I hope we can come to is, and I don't know if it will be a happy medium, but something in between the 3 years and never letting it down. Because I can't envision an answer one size fits all on this. In my particular situation, the need to do some interim repairs, and there are times when I've used contractors. We have great contractors here, and thank goodness for that understand the lake, understand how to do things on the lake. But there are a lot of times in the 3-year period that I have repairs that don't require a contractor. And if I or other homeowners have to go to that expense, one concern I have that I don't think is just a boat owner, lakefront owner concern, I would like to think it's anyone that enjoys our lake. But if we get into a situation that you can only go down and look by using divers and contractors, that's going to be a lot more expensive. I think in the long term, it's going to cause boathouse owners not to do as much inspection. I also think it will lead to not doing as much preventative repairs. And I think over time, we're going to see boathouses that will not be in as good a condition as they're in now. And when people are out enjoying the lake, it's going to have a different view. I would like to think we can come to some answer that would be, I don't know if it's 5 years or what the right answer would be, but something in that ballpark. And to do it in a more compressed time. I think this last time we lowered it, was it 4+ months, something like that? But is there a way to do it in, say, a 3-month period? It takes, what, about 3 weeks or so, depending on whether to drop it, 3 weeks or so to get it up? And allowing a month for repairs, and especially if it's as I'm envisioning, not as much contractor work, the more people can come in. The other part, if all the work depends on contractors, those great folks are challenged to meet their demand as it is, and we're gonna see that work spread out. So in our high season, I think we're gonna see more work, more barges, that kind of thing going on, because it wouldn't all get done during what we call the off-season now. So if there's the opportunity to do something and compress the time, and also if there are emergency repairs, and I know emergency means unscheduled a lot of times, there might not be the chance when the town needs to do something on the dam or wherever that would require it to be dropped, to give enough notice that feels good, but in the cases where it is, let that count as whatever that scheduled year would be and not an added year. So if you just can consider those kind of things, that might give us something that strikes somewhat in the middle. I appreciate that consideration.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Come on now. Okay, here we go.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Michael Harris, 179 Dogwood Drive. Pretty much verbatim what Al just said. A lot of different issues that have to go on. It's going to cost a lot more money. Let's just, for instance, my situation would be a silt situation where it's a lot easier and a lot cheaper to, as you lower the lake, to be able to access cleaning out some of that versus having to send a barge over or dredge, so on and so forth. Putting a schedule in place for at least once every 3 years makes all the sense in the world, or something there. Al had a good point. If there is an emergency and you have to let the lake down, take that time and factor that into when the scheduled lake drop was going to be. But never letting the lake back down, I think, is going to cause more problems than it is solving problems. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you. Did everybody get a copy of the?
No, we got it.
It's coming.
It's coming? Okay.
It'll take a minute.
All right. Well, I want to go over just kind of at random here some of the things that Dean had noted. I wish Dean could have been here, but he's on vacation this week, so we'll get by the best we can without him. But these are the different concerns that affect whether we should lower it or keep it up. Seawall construction, both maintenance, repair, concrete work, pouring footings and so forth, boathouse construction. So as you heard tonight, boathouse construction, you need the lake to be down to do some of the repairs to boathouses, but then when it comes down, it damages others. Excavation, dredging. And while we're on dredging, Tim Edwards, I want everybody to know that he has a new barge that has a little small excavator on it. So he can go around and scoop out, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 tons at a time. But it's a new tool that hasn't been on the lake before. The pros, the property owners are able to repair seawalls and boathouses and pour concrete in dry conditions. And property owners can have engineering permitting and contractors and work plans ready. In other words, if we know when it's going to come down, you have lead time to get everything ready. And our contractors, we have a certain number around here, and they all get really busy when the lake comes down. So that factors into how long we let it down too. Excavation, dredging, some areas it's a lot less expensive to do your dredging manually with a scoop than it is to try to do it hydraulically. The cons, hydraulic generation. When the lake is down 3 feet, we lose the ability to generate electricity using the large generator. And between 4 and 5 feet down, we lose the ability of the small generator, to generate power on the small generator. Now, and recently, we've let the lake down for what you would consider an emergency, I guess, twice. One was when we let it down the 12 feet, I think it was, because there were some repairs that had to be done. They could only be done with the lake down that far, some repairs at the dam. So that had to be done. Then right after that, as we're getting the lake back up, there was a manhole. Excuse me, yeah, no, I think it was where the sewer line connected to a manhole that, that failed. And some of the bricks fell off. We had to let it back down, to repair that. And probably the water being down might have contributed to that, the wave action and so forth. But, you know, that's one more thing we have to consider. Halton Electric production is loss of revenue between $50,000 and $100,000 a month. The New Year's polar plunge is a factor. Collegiate rowing is a factor. Hydraulic dredging needs water depth to work. So we do two kinds of dredging out there. The dredging they do with the boats you see out in the water and the pipes that have to have water there to do it. Damage to existing boathouses and docks by wave action, Wally mentioned that. Damage to the sewer system, pipes breaking and manholes, that's what I was talking about just now. Then emergency access by police and fire boats is less when the water's down. And then the aesthetics, the view shed, as Rumblin' Ball mentioned. So these are the things we're considering. And what I'd, let's see, oh, good, we got another page of them here. Okay, here are our options. We can change the lake cycle to lower every 5 years or more, shorten the amount of time the lake is drawn down, eliminate the schedule and operate according to, and just let it down as needed or when an emergency arises. But the town still would have the ability to lower it any time that something comes up and it would see it was necessary. So I guess what we have to decide is how often, how long, and how much. And I guess it would help us some if maybe just get a show of hands on just a few things here. How many of you would prefer to not see the lake lowered at all anytime? 2. All right, no lower. All right. How many would like to see it down, as we have been doing, about 4 to 5 feet every 3 years? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think 3 years. 4 to 5. All right. How many would like to see 5 years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 25. That's interesting. 5 years. All right. What am I missing? Any options that we should ask
Length
for a
of
show of
time.
hands? Tom?
Length of time. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah, I think we can agree that we would want it up by, where's the Rumblin' Ball guy? When do we have, when does it have to be up for the rowers?
I'm sorry, say it again?
When do your rowers start coming in?
February.
End of February.
End of February, all right, okay.
I'll make a comment or two if I
Huh?
can. I'll make a comment.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Kilby's, is our liaison to the, Lake Advisory Board, so, John, what have you got?
I'd just like to make a comment or two if I can. This is a subject that is discussed almost monthly in the Lake Advisory Committee meeting. And that meeting is here the first Monday of every month at 3:30. And we would, all of our town meetings are open to the public. And so it's not necessarily a participation thing, but it's come and listen and learn what all goes into all these thoughts and all these different things that happen. It's not something that's taken lightly, and it's certainly not something that's an easy decision. You know, when we get into power generation and the loss of the ability to do that for 4 months, if it's a rainy time, that could be $350,000, $400,000. That's significant. It's significant that people have to pay money to have their boat houses worked on by a contractor. But it's significant if we lose $350,000 or $400,000 worth of revenue in the town. So it's not an easy decision to make as to what's the best thing to do. I will say this, so everyone's aware, and we discussed this in the Lake Advisory meeting. There's a number of the Lake Advisory, I won't ask them to stand because you might throw tomatoes at them today, but that we have a number of contractors that are increasing their ability to do things. Now, I think that's a good thing, because increased a number of people to do things while the water's up means the price should come down. So we have at least 2 barges that are going to be on the lake. We have a new contractor that's in the process of doing a new pile driver to be able to pile drive and put posts in that way. So the contractors are aware of the need and what we need to do. From an ecological standpoint, we're much better off when we don't lower the lake. And that has to be a consideration that we give in whatever decision we make. What Wally said about the wind and the waves and everything, it is amazing the damage it can do if the lake is down whenever that happens. So there's not an easy decision. Another thing I'll mention, with the things we're facing with our dam, with the things we're facing with our sewer system, with the things we're facing with our hydroelectric repairs that have to be made, we don't know what we're looking at as far as how long this lake could have to be down. It could have to be down way longer than anybody in this room's ever seen, and maybe ever, that it's been down. So we have all those things. I just wanted to make you think, make you understand there's good things with the contractors are working on, but also understand the future for us and what, as far as the lake going down and stuff like that, we don't have a clue. And it's not going to be option. When all this repairs get ready to start and whatever we have to do to the sewer system, we have to do what we have to do. So I wanted everybody to understand that there's lots of variables in deciding what we have to do and what we can do and what we should do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John.
Matt,
Yeah,
go ahead. One of the things on this paper is, and David, if you could come up, please. It says David needs the lake to be lowered this winter for a valve replacement. And it asks 3 questions: how long, how low, and when.
The time that I
Yeah, I
would
need to
be
know
asking
that.
for would be starting January 1 through the end of January. So it's about 30 days. What that gives us time to do is install a valve that we've already purchased to put into our main sewer trunk line that the state of North Carolina said needed to be in there.
Required to be in.
Yes, so we have told them that we would get that valve put in. We have to lower the lake down in order to get the flow at the treatment plant down low enough to be able to tie into that line.
How far is that?
Do
How
what?
far you need it lowered to
Don-
achieve that
Don
objective?
Byers tells me if we go down between 5 and 6 feet, which is basically where the manholes are,
Right.
that the flow at the plant drops drastically at that point. And if that being the case, once we get to that point, we'll stop. Once we see the flow, I mean, if we got to the 3-foot mark and saw that the flow had dropped enough that we could move forward, that's what we would do. But I'm saying, you know, up to 5 feet, 6 feet, you know, for 30 days. While we had that down, that gives me the time and our health the time to go out and make any necessary repairs that we can see while the lake is down, and maybe find another leaning manhole like you mentioned earlier, John, while it's down, make those repairs then, rather than coming back after the lake's been filled back up.
So you would need up to a maximum of 6 feet for probably 30 days.
30 days, yes.
Starting January 1st.
Yeah, because they do the polar plunge and all, and we don't wanna pull it down before that, get past that point, you know, you're getting into pretty cold weather, and if we could have it back up, cause like we said earlier, the rollers come in the end of February, so I would like to see what I need to do on my end done in 30 days. But if something did happen, there could still be another week or something there if I had to come back and ask for anything.
Now,
So
David, you
yes,
can
sir.
only bring it down so fast, because if,
Yes.
if it comes down too fast, you have a problem with water
I
and
agree.
s-
Yep.
soaked up in the bank, and it can
Yep,
cause
coming out.
slides.
Yep.
So,
What we would try to do is pull it down using our generator as
Mm-hmm.
far as we could, so it didn't just jerk it down at one time.
Right.
If you approve, we're not gonna go out there and jerk the floodgates open and
Right.
pull it down overnight. We'll work toward getting down to that point, and once we see where the flow needs to be for us to be able to make the repair, we'll make the repair and then concentrate on our inspection. And if we get done before then, you know, I'll be willing to come back and say, hey, everything went great, we're done, we're out of the way, you know, if you wanted to bring it back up.
okay.
Regarding your comments and the rowing teams, I think last time we started bringing it up about the middle of February to give it time to fill up whenever they got here. There might have been some delay in that, I can't remember, but if we lowered it from 1 January to 15 February this year, so we can accommodate that, that would also accommodate the rowing teams, would it not?
To be honest with you, I'd have to get back to you with the exact schedule, I mean, because you have a demanding schedule, you can only have so many there at a time, and
Right.
I really, before I said something wrong,
Yeah.
would like to get back to you with some accurate dates.
Well, there's,
And
you know, other variables, or we don't know how much it's gonna rain during that
That's
period of time.
exactly right, that's why I was trying to hold it
Right.
to a 30-day if I
Right.
possibly could,
Right.
because at the end of that 30 days, if it took all of that, then we're gonna start filling back up. But I don't know how much rain we're gonna get. You know, it may come a storm like it's been coming every day and fill it up overnight, and it may not rain a drop, and
Well,
it'll take 2 or 3 weeks or a month to come back to full
And
ponds.
as you lower it, it still takes a week to, well, it takes at least a week to 2 to dry out enough to really do anything in the lake bed.
Yes.
But we'd have to do something this year, and I feel we should make that decision tonight to, for anybody that wants to try to plan some repairs during that period, they have it available to them.
Yeah,
So-
I wasn't aware of that we're gonna, that David had his repairs he has to do, but I agree, since we're gonna have to let it down anyway,
Yeah.
we might as well do it in light of the repairs that need to be done.
Well, let me ask you this question, if we're gonna have that debate, do we need to, Shannon, you may know how long we'll have any idea about anything in regards to the sewer or, the dam, that, do we have any idea on anything like that?
Not at this point, we don't. Not on the dam. We haven't, that contract has not been let. We're waiting because of funding. So we won't know that till September. But right now, we don't anticipate having to, lower the lake for the hoist or the penstock. David, do you know?
Not that I know of, unless the engineers come up with something that I'm not aware of.
Are you saying we'll be able to do the hoist in the penstock without lowering the lake, or we still gonna have to do that? We just don't know when.
I think you would possibly have to close the can to do the penstock work,
Yeah.
especially the inspection, but I don't think you would necessarily have to drop the lake to do that.
I
Bob, do you
misunderstood.
agree? You're pretty
No,
familiar with
I
it.
agree on that end. The only thing is, in my mind, is we've got one person whose septic is failing that needs a sewer line put in.
Right,
And so that's gotta go into the bed of the lake.
yeah.
The only reason to lower the lake, based on what we know at this point, would be for the replacement of this valve in the main below the dam.
What about that one sewer system?
I don't know.
Their septic system, is my understanding, is failing.
That would be
Yeah,
would be a perfect time for
That was
somebody.
brought up last month.
I think this window, it could be accomplished within the
Right.
window that David needs.
Yeah,
Right,
I
that's
think,
what I'm saying.
yeah, I'm thinking if we're gonna let it down, we ought to let it down enough for, for it to be meaningful. People have time to do their work.
Right.
And, we wanna get it back up for the rollers, but what is there? I think the water can be down a certain amount and the, polar plunge can operate with that, is that right?
Yes.
I don't know what that amount would be, because the water starts dropping pretty quickly out there around the beach area.
Yeah.
I think
When we start down, George.
George is here and Patrick, I
Maybe
think,
tell
is
us.
here and might have an answer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
At the beach area, 6 feet is like a deep spot there, and that's only right there out in the center, so most of it's pretty shallow now. Over the last 5 years, all the silt has come through, it's filled in some of that spot. It used to be sort of naturally divoted right there, and there was a berm at the back, but that berm started to fill in now too, so. Once you get below 2.5 or 3 feet, there's not much out there now.
I think once we get past the 2-foot mark on the lake there, you start seeing a drastic change out here.
Yeah.
In the marina. Yeah.
That's why I
That's
was
right.
asking after January 1 to get past that
Yeah.
point and be before the rollers.
Yeah, the problem is we got
I know.
polar plunge on one side and rollers on the other.
Yep.
It looks like we may have to, and if you encroach a little bit on either, you're kind of messing both up.
I
So
agree. I agree.
we may have to, take a different look at, one or the other. I guess maybe the, polar plunge.
I agree, we need the commerce and we welcome the off-season events. We've been talking for years about needing them, and we welcome those. But, and I'll say it if nobody else will, our first and foremost responsibility is this lake is held in trust for the benefit of the citizens. And we need to consider the citizens' needs with regard to lake structures over and above the commerce, if necessary. If we can accommodate it all, great. If we can't, I think we need some understanding to that point too.
Yeah.
If we looked at January 1st, start that day, because it wouldn't have enough effect on the event anyway, that would give you, in January, 4 full weeks plus 4 days, and then if you brought it back up starting the 15th of February, which is a Saturday, that would basically give you 6 weeks and about 4 days.
Yeah.
I think
That's what I was thinking.
that would be adequate.
And all we're
Every
asking
time
for
we've
is
done
30.
that.
Right, 30,
All we're asking for is 30. I would, if we get it done in less time, we could start bringing it back up sewer. If you wait to the 15th to start bringing it back up, you may not be at the level you'd like to be at in 2 weeks.
But that doesn't help the folks who want to work on their boathouses and seawalls.
We're allowed regular
Right.
Yeah, so I'm even wondering if we shouldn't start bringing it down in December. And, maybe we'll try to find another, part of the lake for the polar plunge, maybe the river or,
I had a thought on that earlier, would be to take the barge and actually dredge out a place there in the fall that we could do the polar plunge in the river.
yeah. That, I don't,
Or
I
if
think
it-
we just have to look, because when you weigh that against all the folks doing the work, is what the polar plunge brings in doesn't, compare to what it's costing. So,
Can I ask a bit?
sure.
Patrick, can you come up for a second? I don't want to be the bad guy here, but I'd like to ask you some facts, okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think it's important in making our decision.
Okay.
What's the estimated revenue that's generated from the polar plunge?
So it'll fluctuate year to year. Our best year, we brought in almost $4,000, and all of that goes directly towards Hickory Nut Gorge EMS and Lake Lure Fire and Rescue. So those are all divided directly to them to help fund some of those things. So when we've had the lake drawdown, we have moved 2 or 3 times to the Lake Lure end pool. The first year, about 80 people, and then they found that jumping headfirst into 8 feet of freezing water is a little more than they can bear. Some people just take a tow for the
Well,
plunge.
Could it possibly be held other than New Year's Day?
Possibly so. It's something that I think we could
You know, we used to have
look
the
into.
boat parade the first Saturday
Yeah.
in every December, once people got used to it, you know.
Yeah, and there's
I'm
a
just-
reinvigorated effort to hopefully do some more events in December. Christmas lighting, you know, there's a lot that's going on in the village, but tying some of those things in with Lake Lord Town Center could be really beneficial to bolster a little bit of the shoulder season, but then also prepare for those really dead months, January through the end of March, where some of these necessary things are going to happen.
Maybe we could do a turkey plunge.
Does anybody have a costume? So, you know, to Stephen's point, you know, our residents and our citizens have to take precedence over commerce in some right or respect. But there can also be some middle ground and some balance there too. So there have been 2 years we brought in no money with the plunge, and those were the years subsequent to the lake being lowered and us using the pool. So the PR work to say the lake is back full again, we're doing it in the lake again this year, it was in the pool last year. You know, it's generating that, that guest retention year over year for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, certainly.
Thank you.
All right, so in the past, we have started bringing the lake down on, what, the first week in December?
Right.
Yes,
After
it-
Thanksgiving.
It's
yeah,
3
soon as
months.
It used to be as soon as the Christmas boat parade was on the first Saturday, we started the lake dam, and we had to bring it down.
We basically had 3 months worth, all in December, January, and February.
Okay,
What I remember, basically traditionally.
yeah, so start bringing it back up the middle of February of the last week.
To
So,
be ready 1st March, right.
okay, well, what do y'all think about that? Is anybody have,
I'm willing to try a shorter season this year just to test it, just to see how it does.
If we could get.
Start on the first. That way it's full pond, but it'll start that day. It wouldn't go down much by the time they do the plunge and then bring it up, you know, 14th or 15th of February,
so you saying
In
let
6
it,
weeks.
let it down when? Start letting it down on,
the day of the polar
1st
plunge.
of January, yeah.
January 1.
January 1.
you're saying January 1?
Start that morning, you know, say at 8 a.m. that morning, it starts coming down, which will have, like I said, no effect on the plunge.
All right, does anybody in here have boathouse repairs that, you have boathouse repairs? And you have boat?
How about standing up if
See
you
how- yeah.
have stuff that, if we bring the lake down this year, how many of you know you've got work that you're gonna have done?
And with,
Don't be bashful.
and with six and a half weeks,
Yeah.
keeping in mind, coming up's gonna take a little longer, so you're gonna have about 7 weeks. Is that enough time to get your work done?
It will, you got, you know, it's gotta dry out, and then we always have rain.
I know.
They'll have to work
I'm just
hard.
saying this is a good year to test it. Let's go down there and see how that works for us.
I tell you what's gonna happen. It's what's happened every year. We're gonna let it down, if we let it down then repairs are not gonna get made, or for weather, for other reasons.
You
And
got
then
it.
we're gonna be looking at, at having it down when the, rowers are here. I think we ought to go with the first week in December.
You just saw what we had.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to.
that's safer,
to
I think, yeah.
go neutral on it and just try it 1 year and see what happens.
All
And
right, let's poll, we've all heard something, let's poll ourselves here. You saying,
January
January
1,
first?
and
I'm
back up.
saying, whatever the
December
second
1st.
Saturday, and not or after the first Saturday in December, whenever that is. John, what do you say? What do you think?
I say early. I say
December.
the December.
The December 1st is a Sunday.
Well, we'll say that December first is a Sunday, so we'll say December the, 9th, that'll be the Monday following.
Why,
Yeah, why would we not just go ahead?
We could do it, December first, I'm okay with that.
It's after Thanksgiving and everything.
Yeah.
and bringing it back up when?
Start it back up, whenever in February we need for, to get it up by the end of
If
February.
you're going to do that, then I'd say
Well-
bring it up in February, like the 10th.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking earlier in February. If we're gonna start the 1st of December, bring it up earlier in February, that'd still give us approximately 70 days. And that should be more than enough.
You know, for all the parties at Christmas time, everybody's gonna have an ugly view, like Florida's not
Thank you, Vaughn.
I don't live on the lake, but
Okay,
that's fine.
but you can see it. Okay, all right,
Gary?
Gary?
Gary Johnson. I was in construction for over 45 years. And I have poured concrete in the middle of the mountains in January and had no problem. I have worked in the rain. We had to put our people in rain suits. When you have a drop dead date, you make it happen. And when you set your date of when you're gonna bring it back up, and if they say I'm halfway through, then you say you better make another plan because it's coming back up. It can be done, if they know it's starting off what that day is. I mean, I've worked jobs and I've had $10,000 a day penalty, and you better believe we got done.
Okay, thank you, Gary. All right, so we've got, Bob, you.
I still say January 1.
Bob, John, you, December 1st. Steve?
December 1st, what, to February 10th?
Yeah.
What are you?
From January 1 to February 14th.
Yeah, I'm all right with January 1 to the middle of February, 15th, 14th, 15th, but
I just say try it this year. and let's see.
yeah, well, I mean, I could go with also the beginning of December, I mean, but I'm okay with January 1.
Well, I
It
don't,
depends on, I guess, 45 days, considering the winter weather, the 45 days may be a very limited time to try to get any real seawall work done. If you're pouring a seawall, if you're just making patches and repairs to an existing seawall, that's different. But if you actually have to dig footers and pour a seawall and permitting, that's gonna be tough in 45 days with the winter weather.
Permitting should be done, though.
Well, it should be done prior to it, right?
Like Gary,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Deborah? Deborah, come up to, please.
Contractors live with deadlines all the time, so we're used to it.
If in fact you're going to make a decision whether, if it goes down this year or early next year, and then you're going to consider either a 3 or 5 year lowering after that, and this is going to be factored in, then it makes more sense to give us more time, give everybody more time to fix it, knowing that it's going to be 5 years later.
Yeah.
So I think that needs to be
That's
taken
right.
into consideration.
You're right, and I think you have a seawall and a boathouse that you're.
Right, we're building everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
so that is my
Yeah.
feeling on saying December the 1st, is let people, I understand the reason for January but if we're gonna give people time, let's give people from December 1 to the middle of February, get your plans made, and because I don't think it'll be 5 years before it comes back and get down again, but I hope it is. But get your plans made, and you've got that much time, you've got to get a contractor or whatever you're shoveling, whatever you're gonna do. So I'll make the motion
Okay.
that we, make the plan to lower the lake, the December 1, and that we start the lake back up on February 15th.
Okay. What?
Well, I'll wait till the second,
Okay.
then the
All right,
discussion.
John's made the motion. Is there a second? I'll make a second.
Okay. Discussion.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking, if we're gonna start 1 December, start back up on the 10th, which would definitely accommodate the rolling teams.
Yeah.
I
and be
can
ready.
amend my motion to the 10th. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, first of December to the 10th of February.
Right.
That's 2 months and 10 days.
So it'll begin going down 1 December and return to begin returning to full pond on 10 February.
Yeah, yeah, and that should give enough time to, for it to.
And that's the most important one here is that valve, and that's plenty of time for you to get that accomplished, correct, David? Okay.
Okay.
All right. And the sewer issue that you mentioned, Commissioner Cameron?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, plenty of
Yeah,
time to
that's
take care of
plenty
that?
of time for
Yeah,
that.
all right,
Okay, all right.
okay, I'll go with it.
Motion's, made by John, second by me. All in favor? Aye. Was that an
Aye.
aye? Aye. 3 opposed?
I'll stay with my guns.
Huh?
I'll say no.
You,
Okay.
You said no.
no, okay, all right, 3, yeah. Carries 3-1.
And that's just this year. We're
That's just
still
this
gonna be
year. We
working
still
on
got to wade through all this information we have on what our schedule will be going forward. Okay, all right. Well, our timing was good. Unless anybody else has any comments, any tomatoes, rotten eggs?
I'll
We're
make
here,
a
we're
motion,
ready.
we adjourn.
First to adjourn.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
I'll make a motion made, second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous.
No, I just made a contract just to get it done. No big deal. Y'all